Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of The Real Exchange. Here we talk with different creatives and leaders and get their points of view on different issues in the world and talk about their projects. And today we have a very, very special guest. None the very, very special guest, no one other than Mr. Sebastian Jones. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it on a sunny Saturday morning here in Los Angeles. Thank you for having me.
Right, right. So, first question.
You.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Around 5'11" and a half, 6 foot in shoes. No, so I I grew up in England, and I grew up in a kind of a villagey, villagey kind of area in England called Surrey. Moved around a little bit as a kid. And I moved to America when I was about 18.
Okay.
And I moved here by myself. My family followed me out a couple of years, 2 or 3 years later. But my childhood was pretty cool. Very, very close to my, a very small family, very close to my mom and dad. Um, I had some amazing friends, some very extreme realities as a mixed kid growing up in England, and it kind of, and I said in relation to kind of obviously what we're going to get into, which is building worlds and characters and so on.
Mhm.
So when I was very young, I started getting very into Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings, comic books, escapism. And I think the escapism, the need for escapism um, was very prevalent and very necessary as a young lad. And
Mhm.
then I was creating these characters, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But then as I grew, the world kind of grew with me, and moved when I was 18, and did a lot of acting and modeling when I was young and pretty.
You
And,
still are pretty. What are you saying now?
um, just old. And then I ran a record label. I started running a record label with my family when they moved, um, and put out historical, and I would say an encyclopedia of historical Black American music. So
Oh,
New Orleans, like actually, it's funny actually. Yeah, this is my left hand. Okay, the reflection. So that's actually a painting from one of the albums that we put out.
okay.
So
Awesome.
that was a root, like a Delta blues album, New Orleans jazz, swing, bebop, hard bop, funk, rare funk, stanky funk, all through different periods. And during that time, I was doing a lot of live action role playing as well, a lot of running around the forest with swords,
Yes.
and continue to grow the world through more gaming.
Mhm.
And then I kind of wound the record label down when the internet came along and said you can get all this shit for free.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
and so we had, had to shift focus, and the very snapshot version is I took these comic ideas around to various publishers, and I couldn't, to be honest, this is a while ago now. I'd say this is back in '07, '06, '06.
Mhm.
And it very much felt like they didn't know what I was talking about with, I had, fantasy comics, black comics, and comics with a female lead. And they were like, no, no one's doing any of these three things. I'm like, well, I'm gonna do all three, you know.
Yeah.
And also I was very nervous because a lot of them felt like it might have been only good for them during Black History Month as a quick announcement. And I was like, I got to protect the integrity and vision of um, of the characters and the world and so on. And I didn't want to start do another company again because those things are exhausting. I just want to create, write,
Mhm.
create. Someone else do the
Yep. Yeah.
distribution and that stuff. But she was just too important. The main character they created called Niobe, the
Yeah.
most famous one, she was just too important to me, and I felt like she would be too important to folks that would maybe be inspired by her and read about her and um, would be able to relate to her if she fell into the wrong hands. So I
Hmm.
started up Stranger Comics, and we came out with the first book around 2009. Then we ducked back into the lab. We did some kids' books, and then we came back out in 2015 with that Left Hook You Didn't See Coming. That's a little bit
What a
about.
journey. What a
Yeah,
journey.
I'm giving you the safe version too, the PG version.
Okay. But yeah, you've done music, you've done um art, you've done like that's amazing all that you've done in this time frame and moving from England you said to the United States and developing a life here. That is a lot to go through.
Yeah,
Um
now I've got like, see, so this is
the
going gray
grays.
now. Yeah, it's grays. I was looking at a couple of photos from like 2 or 3 years ago. I'm like, there were no grays.
Oh
So
my gosh.
they're all coming in, so I can feel all distinguished. I guess
Hmm.
that's what they say, right? But
Yeah.
people are feeling insecure about it. You're distinguished now.
Right. It's a your wisdom is showing. That's what's
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
um so so you've developed your background. So let's move into um Niobe. So you like you said, you don't just have one character series that you do, but I
Right.
want to focus on Niobe for this interview because
Sure.
she's just such an amazing character. So who is Niobe Ayutami and how was she birthed?
Wow. Yeah, you got the pronunciation right. Okay. That's awesome. Niobe, I I believe she was birthed, you know, spiritually. I think, without sounding all lofty and obnoxious.
Mhm.
When I was young, when I was a young boy, and I think I romanticized about a character that could kind of inhabit my shoulder the weight of my insecurities and my vulnerabilities and my hopes and
Mhm.
fears, but also harness my ambition and my wrath and my
Mhm.
anger at the things that I was seeing around me. And so, that maybe she could save me in some respects, so I would pour all of my insecurities and confidence and ambition and all these things onto her wing shoulders, right?
Mhm.
And so when I started to create this fantasy world, I think she was there, as I was touching on earlier, she was there to kind of make the fantasy world I was creating a better place. Like she could, with who she could be and would be, and the journey that she would go on. And as I grew, she grew with me. And so she was first introduced in this book that I wrote called The Untamed, A Sinner's Prayer. That's where we first meet her. And it really was to offer this other character in the book the chance at redemption. And but you don't realize it's actually the beginning of how I kind of wanted to introduce, an audience to get to know her, plant a seed, and
Mhm.
let the audience then, you know, uh, water the flower and watch it grow and be a part of her journey. So that Niobe is, and character wise, she is mixed. She's half black, half white, sure, but she's also half elven, half human, half an angel, half demon, to
Mhm.
reflect the duality within all of us that we all share, all that struggle that we all share in this conflict within. Um, and the other aspect to her as well, which I think is true for many folks of color, is she's always trying to find family and find her ancestors, to find her faith.
Mhm.
She's trying to always connect with her ancestors, to find her faith, not just within who she is, but within humanity as well, to find a sense of uh, and find a sense of place in the world. And over the course of her storylines, there's I was realizing this recently. It's like, oh, everything about her is trying to find who she is in each phase of her life, which essentially is the journey of anybody.
Wow.
And so the Untamed, I've got a book of it here, and I'll give you the quick introduction into the book because this will. I'm going to take the dust jacket off if it'll let me. Okay, so there we go. There's the Untamed.
Mm.
Right now, this is a story about a man who's stuck in purgatory. And after 10 years, the devil comes along and he says, I'll give you 7 days to collect the 7 souls that murdered you and your family. And the guy says, sign me up. I have nowhere else to be. So he takes a drifter's return out of purgatory to a one-horse town in a huge world that spent 30 years creating.
Wow.
Now, my question for you, Amber, is this.
Mm-hmm.
You see that guy down there with the 2 swords?
Uh,
See with the hat there and the hood? You
like in
see?
the negative space,
Yeah, you see what's holding him up?
a
The,
hand.
the hand of the devil. You got it.
Wow, that is
So
cool.
this guy takes a drifter's return to a one-horse town. And as his memory comes back in broken shards, he realizes when he was alive, he was a bad man and maybe he deserved to die, but now he's on a path to save his family. On his path of vengeance to save their soul, he meets a little elven girl, and her name is Niobe.
Okay.
And she reminds him of how old his murdered daughter would have been had she lived, giving him a second chance to be a good man or a father, but he only has 7 days. The kicker is, what if she's one of the 7 souls he has to collect?
Oh no.
And the devil set the whole thing up just to find her. Would you damn your family to save the world? Because if Niobe can stay alive in this book, The Untamed, she may grow up to become our world's Luke Skywalker, the face of our whole franchise.
Wow.
So that's where you first kind of meet Niobe and who she is
Mm-hmm.
in that Untamed book. And then the evolution of Niobe from that book was a story called Niobe She Is Life. And that's the most probably famous one that we have. That's this one right here.
Okay.
And I wrote this with, look, I might be mixed, but I'm not a young teenage girl, and I had to get an authentic voice to help, at least with this first young teenage book. And I was very honored and blessed that Amandla Stenberg, who most famous for playing Rue in the Hunger Games and The Hate You Give, and
Yeah.
Eddie, right,
Yeah.
all these amazing things, she's an amazing person. She co-authored this with me. And Ashley A. Woods out of Chicago, who's amazing, did all the beautiful art.
Yes.
Absolutely magical, very, very kind of like anime in style, but painted. She has certain whimsy and light. And this, when we hooked up with Amanda and Ashley, it became the first nationally distributed comic book with a Black female author, artist, and hero in the history of entertainment.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a piece of
That is
history.
that is history.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
Awesome.
really surreal. It's a surreal thing.
Oh my goodness.
And for video game fans out there, if
Yeah.
you know The Last of Us.
I've heard of that, yes.
Okay, The Last of Us and Uncharted 4, the lead concept artist Hyun did the cover for this and a bunch of other stuff that we.
Your artwork for your books is so amazing. Like,
Yeah, they're amazing. The guys who
yeah,
work are ridiculous. They're ridiculous. Yeah.
that's awesome. So, how did you get Viola Davis to write the foreword for this? How did that happen?
Okay. So I had a bunch of meetings with Viola's company, and we were hoping to work on some things. And they're just absolutely lovely people over there at her company. And I got very, very close to her husband Julius, and I just asked him, would it? I would be honored if Viola could write the forward in the hardcover. So in the hardcover of She Is Life, Viola wrote the hardcover in this forward, and we use her quote a lot, which is,
Mhm.
We all have a Niobe inside ourselves. It's time to let her roar.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's yeah. No, I just asked. I
Okay.
mean,
Well,
I,
that's simple enough. That's simple enough.
I'm not shy. Yeah.
I actually have like a cool little story about I did some background acting for a little bit,
Oh yeah.
and I got to be on the set of Troop Zero with Viola Davis.
Oh crazy.
Yeah, and I didn't get to actually meet her, but I passed by her a couple of times, and I actually threw up on the set outside, like during a scene.
You
Crazy.
threw up. What happened?
Yeah, we had eaten. I ate too much actually, and it was very hot outside, and I don't do well
Oh,
in hot weather, and so yeah, that happened. So that's kind of my
your Viola story ended up with throwing up.
yeah.
That's hilarious. That's
I
hilarious.
know, right? I know, but yeah. So, um, how? So I want to read just something I got off the website about
Yeah.
the distinguishing features of Niobe, and I'm enamored by her. Like I bought one of your comic books and I read it, and I was so like knee deep in this story.
Oh wow. Thank you.
But it says her hair is long, locked and matted. Her off colored eyes, one hazel, the other blue, are mesmerizing. They radiate a destiny not yet fulfilled, but they are her bane. For her father, King Andrek the Seventh, bears the same distinction and has ordered that his illegitimate daughter be killed on sight. That's pretty epic.
Wow. I love hearing that. My goodness. I'm like, who wrote
Yeah.
that? That sounds amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a huge, I mean, you know, first of all, as the kids say, first of all, I knew I wanted, it comes back to wanting to connect with your ancestry and wanting to connect and feel like you're a part of something rooted. Is I knew Naomi would have to have dreadlocks. It just
Mhm,
felt the most authentic representation of who she is, and some of the hairstyles that some of the tribes that helped raise her when she was very young, and you'll see those in other stories that we have.
okay.
The more you get to know her, is very, very important. Um, and there are other accents, feathers, and um, the the spiky things she has in her hair that could double up as weapons as well as use it for practical means. I probably
Mhm,
got that from Pam Grimm, you know, but it's just one of the chaps who worked with Daryl is an anthropology major, so all the things that she has and wears is very has purpose. And I believe though it might have been Ashley who actually had the I'm obsessed with ponchos. I've got like a load of them.
uh-huh,
But but I think it was Ashley who it was her thoughts. I could be wrong, her or Daryl. They were both just amazing at bringing this character to life.
mhm,
Um, who we gave her the poncho on top. She just felt the most functional, and also being very very sensitive to also her age and understanding like you know in the Untamed storyline she's about 13.
mhm,
In the Niobe Shear's life story, she's about 16, and the Niobe Shear's death story, she's a bit older. So understanding coming of age moments and becoming a young woman, and wanting to make sure that certain things are covered, and just remain having balancing that innocence and wonder with growing into you know um, growing into oneself.
okay.
So the journey of Niobe is really, really, really important, um, and how to best organically reflect that. And as far as her eyes,
Mhm,
so her eyes are her dad's. Her dad bears the same distinction, and I touched on it earlier. So her her father is the human king, but in the European continent, because the world I've created is huge. It's like as big as Earth. and I wanted to make it that big so I had the rest of my life to paint it in and discover it as well with
Yeah.
other creators as well. Um, so okay, the backstory is this, and
Okay.
you'll read about it in a new comic. So in the tribe, in a tribe of the Gathering Wind in Ugoma, which is the continent of Africa, in the Ugoma jungle and part of the Utanamo, these areas, um, there were always kind of wars between humans and elves, or the Galimwe tribe. There are different types of elves, without going down the rabbit hole of complete nerdery. But she, especially the European, the snow facers, the Europeans were, every time they would come into these areas, they would decimate, destroy. So the tribes basically banded together and was like, yo, look, there can't be any humans coming in, especially not the people from the West. And
Mhm.
then one chief was like, you know what, it's been 1,000 years, check, let's forgive and let's try and heal and move forward. And this king and his wife and their children and their advisors and an army of, let's say, 500 come to this great feast that the Galimran tribe put on. And the queen of the tribe, Nadami, she comes and she performs a ritual dance. And the human king, it was said the devil was in him. When he saw her, he had to have her.
Mhm.
So what he did is he turned to his main advisor, this wizard named Salem, who is actually the raven that you'll see in the Untamed. And you'll see him pop up here and there. You just don't realize he's like Untamed. All connected. Um, he's like, all right, well, you can't have it because we're kind of surrounded. He's like, take, get us out of here. Let's kidnap her. And he's like, okay, but I only have enough power to take you and her and myself. He's like, fine. He's like, but then you're gonna leave your wife and children and everybody to them at the mercy of this tribe. He
Mhm.
does it anyway. So they disappear and they leave the rest of his family to be massacred by a bunch of very angry tribal folk. And they port to the European kingdom where for the next year or years, the legend goes, the human king would try and woo this queen to fall in love with him. Of course, she never did. So
Mhm.
it was said again one night the devil was in him. So he took her by force
Mm.
and planted his seed, not
Mhm.
knowing his seed would be her seed of vengeance upon him for
Wow.
committing such the ultimate act of atrocity. And he couldn't deal with the guilt and shame after committing such an act or sin. And he couldn't kill her because he was in love. So he cast her to the dungeons, unknowing that's where she would give birth. And the wizard, the same dude, his advisor who was with him, knew.
Mhm.
And then when she gave birth, plucked this child and then has been hiding her in different parts of the Sunder. So she will become grown to get vengeance and
Oh my
essentially
gosh.
unite the world against the devil, her father.
This is so deep. This is
There's a lot. There's a
so
lot to
deep.
explore.
So how has how has Niobe affected your from your experience, how has she affected your base, your supporters, your readers? What is their reaction?
It's unbelievable. It is so humbling. And now and again, it's just a pinch me on, like, it's because when you're in the lab and you're understanding as best you can the responsibility of creating nuances to a character that will have such a personal effect. It is a joy and a relief.
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's overwhelming at times. I mean, the cosplayers that come to the like booths at conventions, or send me photos, or so, and I get these incredible messages. It's it honestly, when things are tough, and they've been really tough with no conventions, and as a
Mhm.
small publisher, that's a lot for us to kind of juggle. Um, um, it gives you this inner strength and peace to make sure you keep going and keep creating and make sure that this journey is um, going to mirror the reader's journey as well. And
Okay.
even if someone's older and they go back and they read and go like, oh, I remember when I was like this. Like in Niobe Shear's life, okay, in Niobe Shear's life, her hands are folded, right? You see that symbol there? Her
Yeah.
hands are folded, so she rocks this like this. Now, those are the wings of the goddess Anumenel. So that's the spiritual representation of her mother. She also has that same marking on her back. She, which is looks a little like that symbol there. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the goddess of light and healing. So what we did, and what was kind of crazy, was we went from Niobe Shear's life to Niobe Shear's death, and we did this image right here, which is funny. You'll see that image there. You see it?
Yes.
So
I,
that's when she closes her fists to
yeah.
say, "I'm not listening to you, Mum." And then a year later, we saw Black Panther came out, and was like, everyone's going to think that's weird, but no,
Right. You did it before. Okay.
we did it before. But, you know, I'm sure it's just in the zeitgeist, and you know, and very Egyptian, very Kemet, very Pharaoh-like. Wonder Woman does it, you know, like so. But all I have to say is, we went from this, and I was saying, let me receive the message from, you know, God,
Mm-hmm.
and try and do God's work. And then as she got older, saying, I'm not listening.
Mm.
So Niobe Shear's life is a Beauty and the Beast love story, threaded with murder and mystery that leads to war. But as I said, it's all about a young girl trying to find faith with her ancestors. But Niobe Shear's death is when she basically sees the world a lot for what it is, far more ugly than naive. And
Mm-hmm.
she becomes a bit of a badass bounty hunter, hunting down sex traffickers and human traffickers to reflect her own girls that get abducted.
Wow.
So that's Niobe Shear's death. And then in Shear's death, and this is done by Sheldon Mitchell, and his artwork on this is incredible. I mean, we have Jay Lee, of course, doing covers as well, but it's quite it's very potent. And then after Shear's death, we're going to have Shear's spirit,
Mm-hmm.
where she's going to combine both her faith and her fighting as she grows, right? It's like our own journey. We go, I can't just be one way or the other. I have to have awareness and, you know, and be complete as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have Niobe Shear's God,
Wow.
where
Wow.
she'll bind nations against the devil, her father, the untamed.
This is gonna be a this is already an epic journey, but it's getting even more epic as you go on. You
Thank
you
you.
you all who are watching this and listening, I hope you guys really take the time out to go out and check out Stranger Comics and all of their titles, and especially Niobe. Um, and I have one two more questions. So
Yeah.
if you could offer any piece of advice to your base to help them get through these tough times, what would you say?
Couple of things. One is listen to certain types of music that and sounds that kind of center you and keep you calm, and because it's such a storm, and so there's so much quiet desperation and loneliness. It's extremely difficult times right now
Mm-hmm.
for just that needing to connect. So I think take take the time for yourself to figure out how to do a bit of exercise and a bit of meditation, and also to give yourself um, little like mental jolts. Like, okay, I shouldn't write or create where I chill and watch TV, because then while I'm there, I get the opportunity to be distracted. To go, if I'm going to work or going to school, I'd have to get in the car, I'd have to walk. So it gives you an activity to go somewhere. So if you create a mini activity like 5 minute walk around the block, and then you set a time that you're going to write and create, do it, and try and do it before the world gets up, so you don't feel guilty at the end of the day. And the long term advice is really an understanding is, if you're going to do it, you really got to, excuse me, do it. You really have to go for it 100%, because it just it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to think of an idea like a child, that it needs to be nurtured, and they need attention.
Mm.
They need taken care of, and they need constant attention. And
Okay.
it's not only when you're inspired, like, oh, I wasn't feeling it. I'll do it tomorrow when I'm inspired.
Yeah.
That you got to look at it as a job, as a not a job, but a an honoring the gift that you've been given. Because if you don't write your story, the man will, and he'll ruin it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So how can people connect with you? What are the avenues?
Um, get a gong, and we can astrally connect across the. I think you guys can find me at Stranger Comics on any social media. Just put in at Stranger Comics. Oh, we're doing these weekly Instagram lives now every Thursday at 6 o'clock Pacific, and they've been an absolute blast. And so we're creating a real kind of family vibe because of lack of conventions and just connecting. So Stranger Comics on Instagram. We have Facebook and Stranger Comics. We have a group page and a fan page. Twitter, just connect strangercomics.com. Um, Anything that says Stranger Comics, you'll probably find me, across the way. And the one thing I will tell you before I space this, so we
Mhm.
have another character that you will fall in love with called Dura.
Can you repeat that?
Her name is Dura Ujela, Dura, this lady right here.
Okay.
And that's her, the young Niobe. I'm actually working on a story night right now featuring the two of them that'll be coming out for the first time on Kickstarter around April or May. And her first appearance is in another book called Dusu, but she is essentially what we say the midwife to the world. She's one of the world creators. And you'll see the butterfly wings behind her and all that, all that kind of stuff.
Sweet.
So yeah, lots of good stuff in Niobe's world. You can start putting it all together.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sebastian, for taking the time out to do this interview.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching.